Hey guys, it's me, Alyssa from Pixar Origins. So I wanted to jump on in because a while ago I made this clip about The Incredibles, and I was basically talking about like why it was dark and how it came to be created. And in that, I revealed that The Incredibles takes place during the 60s. And there were a lot of comments about how that couldn't be true because there was just advanced technology like computers and everything. So it must have it took place in the 90s. And I'm here to debunk that. And also it made me realize that a lot of people are not familiar with retrofuturism. So I was going to do a post about that. So let's talk about retrofuturism. So retrofuturism is basically a movement in the creative arts where they imagine the advance of technology and the future within a certain specific era, usually an earlier period than what the technology allows. So this picture is a really good example of retrofuturism because you literally are seeing spaceships. We're seeing this advanced architecture. But look at the cars. The cars are literally like old models, like probably maybe 60s, 70s. I'm not too familiar with cars, but you can see the clear difference. So it's the idea of envisioning concepts and things from the future within a certain specific era that's usually earlier than that point. And so some examples of other movies that fall into retrofuturism is, of course, Blade Runner, which had a lot of fashions from the 80s while also having much advanced technology. And this wasn't on a list, but I would even say A League of Extraordinary Gentlemen was also a great example of retrofuturism because you literally have a movie that takes place in 1899, around the time when cars are first being invented. But these are like horseless carriages, basically, that are invented. And yet in the movie, they have this spectacular grand car that also had a lot of features within it. And don't even get me started on the ship. Like this design right here, like we ain't even got this now, baby. Like so that is a really good example of retrofuturism because this is literally taking place in, the 19th century. And I think retrofuturism is such a cool concept because you can literally, dream up of places while still keeping some of the elements of certain periods or eras within it. In retrofuturism, you can highlight the architecture and the interior designs and all that other stuff within a movie while also dreaming up a world where there's, different freedoms, there's different acceptances, and there's also, more advanced ways of doing things. And so when we come into The Incredibles, we get to see this mid-century modern, architecture, which I always love mid-century modern looks. Like, I'm so sad that y'all are out here buying homes like these and tearing them down, but we're going to save that for another day. But as you can see, like the mid-century, it really stands out. Even in the second movie, which picks up right from the first movie, you're able to see like what it looks like on a grand scale. So we saw in a middle class income, the mid-century contemporary, but now we see it in a larger, like on a more wealthy scale, like also including like the sunken living rooms, the couches, the high ceilings, and the fireplace. We also still get to see, some of the old ways, like look at how the stove is kind of like in the wall. Like I remember when that was a thing, the refrigerators, like all these things are able to be kept. And then when we dive into the costumes, we see how where the inspiration comes from, and the fact that, it's a lot of like, again, those mid-century vintage inspired looks. So like Edna's look was very mod style. And even for Evelyn, they have found other ways to find inspiration. So Brad had asked, the team, like, hey, look at Patti Smith, look at Laurie Anderson, Diane Keaton, and Annie Lennox. Like, find something that is more bohemian for Evelyn, which was also another look around that time. And by the way, this is Patti Smith, and it is just so funny to me because I literally see Evelyn in her. So I definitely see the inspiration with the bangs and all that, nice shaped face, all that good stuff. And so we get to keep the fashions and the designs, and also even keeping some of the social norms at the time. Like the fact that we see the one of the social norms was the housewife, the stay-at-home wife or stay-at-home mom movement. And we see Helen is a stay-at-home mom. Like she has stopped her career. She has had kids. She is at home cooking and cleaning and taking care of the kids. But we don't have to include every single thing within that social period, because this is retrofuturism. So a lot of y'all were like, oh, if this takes place in the 60s, how are Bob and Frozone even friends? But that's the thing, like, you don't have to include every single thing about an era. Most times when it comes to retrofuturism, I find that they really just pull from the fashions, they pull from the architecture, they'll pull in just a little bit of social norms, but it doesn't have to be everything. So you can have a world in the 60s where a black man and a white man are very much best friends. But sidebar, living in a city during the 60s, I wouldn't really be too surprised if a white man and a black man were friends. Like, I just wouldn't be that surprised. Is it common? No, but I don't think it would be shocking. And for those who don't believe me, this is the paper that Bob is reading at the dinner table. And as you can see, it says 1962. And so when you're asking, well, how is it that they had computers? Like, how was it that they were even talking about the Common Core, math joke? Because that is the whole thing with retrofuturism. Like, you can pull in any elements. You can keep influence from certain eras while still also being free to include some relative jokes or to include some, advanced technology or even practices that take place in the future. So we can keep the nuclear family. We can keep, the sexism or the sexism even displayed is still on a light level. Like, it's really just, oh, stay at home mom. Like, it's on that level. We can even dive into, the whole, oh, everybody's the participation trophies or everybody's special, like that whole thing. Cause that was kind of something that was popping up around that time too. The idea that people are mad, like, how are we making everybody special? Like, you're great or you're not. Like, that's very much a boomer thing. So you can keep those things and still have the flexibility to move things around. So it's not just a whole big old trauma dump, but something that you can learn from and still be entertained by. Even when we watch Bridgerton, like, think about what we actually like watching it for. Like, yes, we like the love stories, but really we are truly just enjoying the fashions. Like, we're not concerned about we know this technically is taking place during a war. We're not concerned about seeing slavery. We're not concerned about we're just not thinking about that because we are really into the fashions. We're into, even some of the social practices, the idea of like a woman being courted and, somebody falling in love without having the lust present. Like, there are certain things that we want to see without it being a full-on trauma dump session. And so here's hoping to more creators, more filmmakers and, TV series diving into retrofuturism more, because I just think that, as a person who loves animation, who loves fantasy, I think that we could really dream up some new worlds instead of just doing the same old shit over and over again. But that's just me. But yeah, that's retrofuturism. A long story short, it does take place in the 60s. This is retrofuturism. So you will see computers, you will see advanced technology and everything like that. But it does take place in the 60s. Okay, you guys enjoy.